different video for you today. I decided I would try my hand at a sort of childhood trauma video, although I've probably named it something else since I think that trend died out ages ago. I'm hoping I can somehow get this out by Halloween, but I get the feeling that that's not going to end up being the case, so sorry if this ends up coming out at Christmas or something. Long story short though, I tried to think of as many weird and strange things that scared me in various types of media when I was just a child, and I came up with a pretty long list. So due to that, this will be a 3-part series. This video will cover things in video games, the next video will cover things in movies, and the final one will cover anything else from TV to music, you know, just anything. I'll try not to make them too long, and I'll probably go over the more minor things just quickly, but for the things that either really left an impact or still bother me to this day, I'll go into depth on. At least to an extent anyway. I'm hoping this will be at least somewhat entertaining or interesting. Maybe some people will even relate to some points. But overall, I hope you enjoy. Now, to get it done and out of the way, I'm putting all the spider-related entries into one section. That way, those of you that aren't bothered by spiders and don't want to hear someone complain and freak out about them, or if you're someone with really bad arachnophobia and don't want to hear or see anything about spiders, you can skip to the next section. The timestamp will be in the description and pinned comment for those of you on mobile. All good to continue? Alright, let's start then. So developers really love putting these 8-legged hellspawn into kids games, and I will never understand why. As a kid, I couldn't deal with them, even in games, and as an adult, I still can't. I have probably some of the worst arachnophobia imaginable, and editing this section will be an absolute nightmare for me, so good job future me for getting it done. So, how bad are they in the games I played? Well, one of the worst examples is in Animaniacs The Great Edgar Hunt. Not only is the entire Once Upon a Time movie level full of trees that they hide in and then dangle down onto you when you get too close with a really just disgusting sound effect to go with it. Like just, ugh, I hate it. But there's an entire mission set in a dark forest where the only way to get through is to use night vision goggles, and there's just spiders everywhere. What makes it worse is the only audio you hear upon going in is just nothing but really creepy ambient noises. Needless to say, as a kid, I never even went near the place. Another example would be in The Hobbit. Flies and spiders. That's literally the name of the level. And from what I can tell, the flies aspect is a complete lie. This level is infested with some of the most horrible looking spiders I've ever seen in a game, maybe only competing with Grounded. I got to this level as a kid, maybe got around halfway through, then gave up and I've never touched the game since. A bit less so, but still a major issue for me, were the spiders in Spyro: A Hero's Tale. Say what you will about this game, but as a kid, I enjoyed it. It was very bright and colourful, and infested with spiders. The entire second area of the game has these huge spiders that constantly respawn and shoot webs at you if you get too close. What's worse, to make progress in the game, you have to go through this small tunnel that is filled with basically nothing but webbed up caves where the spiders lunge out at you from. Who designed this and thought it was okay? They're even included in the Blink minigame, so needless to say, I never completed any of them willingly. Possibly one of the worst offenders though was Madagascar. 3 different types of spiders, in one game! I get the latter part is set in the jungle, but holy shit, whose idea was this? They're first introduced as these horrible spindly-legged abominations in the level Mysterious Jungle, and from then on there's at least one type of spider in every level up until the final level, which thankfully doesn't have any. The most common type is this almost half spider, half crab looking thing, which I can probably deal with the best, and the third type is this green dangly-legged type, which only occurs in sections where it comes down on you from above. Although the whole onion thing is kind of amusing. This one's basically expected, but nonetheless bothersome. Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. I just realised almost all of these games so far have been based on some kind of already existing media. Anyway, yeah, this one shouldn't be a surprise to anyone after listing it as my 3rd favourite game of all time and knowing what happens in the book/movie. The Forbidden Forest, Aragog, I don't need to explain. But long story short, once again, I couldn't complete this as a kid. The worst part is probably the Aragog boss fight, as he'll charge towards you, which means he'll charge towards the screen. And that's way too close for my liking. Giant spiders in games seems to be unfortunately popular, and Shrek 2 is here to prove that. If my memory is correct, then I'm pretty sure there wasn't a single spider even mentioned in the movie. However, the game decided it needed to make them a major-ish enemy in 2 different levels, the worst offender being Prison Break. This level already has a sort of intimidating vibe to it, and then it just throws in these huge spiders out of nowhere. I couldn't get past this point for the longest time when I was a kid, especially since I swear I have a memory of using the fairy to try and attack them once and it made one of the smaller ones bigger. Of course, when I did finally complete the level, I wasn't given a break, as those same spiders are continued into the next level. I do remember having an easier time with them there, though. Here's an unexpected one. Garfield's Scary Scavenger Hunt 2. If anyone else remembers this, there was a room where when you went into it, these spiders would hang down from the ceiling. This was a horrible surprise for me as a kid, and it meant I could never complete the game as I didn't want to go back in there, and the whole point of them was for a mini-game. These ones don't bother me too much anymore just because of how cartoony they look, but the fact they're completely black with just a small shine on them doesn't really help. Plus the sound effect when they first come down is kind of iffy. A couple other games that included them but weren't super major were The Simpsons Hit and Run, where they were included as decorations in the final level and looked horrifying, and The Nightmare Before Christmas Oogie's Revenge, where the boss itself never really bothered me, but I swear I have a memory of going into the town hall sometime after the very first boss and having them jump at the camera or something. That's all for the spiders though, luckily. I feel like I've cursed myself now after talking about them for so long. I think I want to keep with the segments though, so let's see. How about music next? While there isn't anything visually scary about music, it can still manage to really create a sense of dread, discomfort, and fear. Now, you would think that kids' games wouldn't include any music that would cause that kind of reaction, right? Sonic CD would like to disagree. What the fuck is this? Who thought this was a good idea? This still gives me goosebumps to this day, and not the good kind. The US boss music is just... I really don't know what they were thinking. Pair this with a hidden message in the sound test and you've got yourself nightmare fuel. And the game over music isn't any better. In fact, I'd say that's probably even worse. Now, this is maybe pushing it for childhood trauma as well. I first found out about it as a kid via a YouTube video showing the hidden message. I didn't experience the actual game for myself until I was in early high school. But at the end of the day, this is horrifying and it was part of at least my late childhood, so yeah, it makes a list. Sonic ain't done scaring me with the music yet though. Sonic Rush Adventure had 2 tracks that messed me up. The music event tracks titled Tense and Nervous were too much for me as a kid to the point where I always muted the DS whenever they started. Tense tended to always play whenever a new island was appearing from the water, and while nothing really bad ever happened when this played, it always left me with a strange feeling that something horrific was going to happen. And it still does, honestly. Nervous, on the other hand, only played in one scene and, as a kid, was the track that freaked me out the most by far. These days, I'd say my opinion of the two have switched, and while Nervous is still creepy, it's definitely more of a typical horror-type track, and I actually really like and appreciate it for what it is now. While Tense feels unfitting and just causes me to be really unsettled. Neither of them really fit into a Sonic game of all places, though. The worst offender in terms of music, though, has to be the Shrek 2 menu theme. Okay, I know this sounds dumb, but hear me out. For at least a portion of my childhood, I had to mute the TV whenever I played Shrek 2. The start of the menu music just really scared me, and the visual of the book on just a black background probably added to it, although that in and of itself never bothered me. Luckily though, one day I left it on for long enough for one of the demos to start playing, and I heard the later part of the track that completely shifted tone and became much more rock-like, which was a big surprise to me and started my journey to getting over the first part of the track. It's actually pretty cool to me these days, although I can still see why it spooked me so much as a kid. Lastly, there's basically every single bit of music from a hidden object game called Escape the Museum. I realize I'm hitting some rather obscure things, but I've always had fun with this game, even if the cutscene artwork is rather dodgy, to say the least. But that's not the main aspect of the game, so it's easy enough to ignore. Everything about the music of this game and the actual levels is super eerie. Like, it's not so creepy that I chose to mute it every time I played as a kid, but it was unsettling enough that I would on the occasion. One of the worst was surprisingly actually during the artwork minigame you would occasionally get between sections of the game. I don't know why it bothered me so much, as it's probably the most upbeat music in the game, if you can class it as that, but it still has a weird undertone to it. Actually, quickly while on the note of Escape the Museum, this weird frog thing in this level in particular used to really creep me out as a kid. I don't really know why, but I remember it actually caused me to make a video showing the stuff that scared me in the game. Kind of a shame it got deleted. It would have been cool to have for this. One more music track that used to creep me out was the options menu music in Sonic Mega Collection Plus, along with the credits as well, but that was more for personal reasons than the actual music itself. Let's talk about actual levels in games now, shall we? I'm probably going to be stretching the level term for this segment, so this will cover anything from actual full levels to just specific things that only appear in certain levels or areas. The most bothersome is probably in Crash Bandicoot Wrath of Cortex. Crashes to Ashes. Sure, it's a boss fight and there's nothing particularly scary about it, but the environment, the fact you're being chased by a rather demonic looking crunch? Yeah, no, sorry, something about this level got under my skin as a kid and it still does to this day. And as much as I love the music separately, in context with the level, it does kinda add to the intensity. Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets is making a second appearance here. First of all, there's a grabbing hand and bargain and Burks. This still bothers me to this day, as if you're not careful enough, then it almost works as a sort of jump scare. However, the worst thing, the absolute most terrifying thing to me in this game as a kid, was the ghosts in the restricted section and Transfiguration Chamber challenge levels. Specifically more because of the noise they made, so I always had to mute the TV whenever I got to the sections with them. Wish I had known about those speedrunning tactics back when I was a kid. Would have made things a lot easier for me. A second entry for Animaniacs The Great Edgar Hunt as well. This may probably seem pretty ironic, but the spooky movie level, well, spooked me. I touched on this in my top 10 video games list, but this stupid tunnel used to really freak me out as a kid to the point where I had to get my mum to go through it for me. Something about unnatural areas just really bothered me as a child. In fact, they still do, but this wasn't the only thing in the level. The crypt area has some rather eerie music, and the spike pits in the floor along with the legs sticking out the wall really got to me. There was also this chair that flung itself at you, which I never liked, and while it was more into my early teen years, this little side room with the rocking horse was very creepy to me. On that unnatural environments note, the SpongeBob SquarePants movie game. So I'm sure at least some of you remember this game. However, do you remember one of the mini-games where you had to platform across various different cubes as Patrick? I have a very love-hate relationship with these, as they're really fun, but also incredibly frustrating. As a kid though, I never got past the first level because at the very end, the very last section where you're jumping across ice cubes that melt if you stay on them for too long, you basically get encapsulated in this constantly spinning tube, and it always freaked me out so badly that I would end up falling off because I didn't want to continue. I don't know why this is here, especially since this is the only level where this happens. If anyone at all knows what this next one is, I'd be very grateful. So I can only be rather vague, as I only remember enough to say that it scared me, but back when I was young, I used to play a lot, and I do mean a lot, of hidden object games. And one that I played a trial of had a scene in it that I swear had either an intact or severed arm that was partially covered by a blanket or some kind of material. From what I remember, it was in a prison cell, and I want to say the game was called Monte Carlo or Cristo or something similar, but I'm really not sure. All I know is that it messed me up. On a slightly lighter note, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. You'd think it was the Dementors, right? Well, you'd be wrong. Although they do actually legit freak me out these days. What scared me as a kid in Prisoner of Azkaban was this fucking ghoul. I could never get past one of the literal early game missions because I refused to go anywhere near this thing. My reason? If you get too close or attack it, it will chase after you. And this thing is fast, so you would more often than not always get attacked by it. Also the eyes. It's just really creepy looking. Shadow the Hedgehog and Sonic Heroes both contained a level that had something in it that bothered me. For the former, it was Cryptic Castle's secret route, as with all the spider imagery in the level, I was always scared there would be an actual spider enemy hidden in it. For the latter, however, it was these skeletons that would pop out in Mystic Mansion. A couple other things were the 3rd/4th level, if you include the sort of intro dream level, and the Hobbit, mainly because of these wooden spike things. This foyer environment in Escape Rosecliff Island, a level in Super Monkey Ball Deluxe that had these oval things that I hated the movement of, especially when you increased the speed, and this weird eyeball environment in Guitar Hero World Tour. Also, to very quickly add on, the sewers in Wallace and Gromit Curse of the Were-Rabbit. I always tried to avoid them as a kid and would nope out of them as quickly as possible if I ever accidentally fell in. I'm so glad I'm splitting this into 3 parts, otherwise we'd be here all day. If you've made it this far, then thank you so much, and I really hope you've been enjoying. But now, let's get on to the final few entries and talk about everything and anything else. So, I'm actually gonna cover the smaller things first this time. That being said, The Incredibles and Wallace and Gromit Curse of the Were-Rabbit both share a common contributor with their death screens. For The Incredibles, it's a harsh brass, the screen going black all except for your character and the eye turning red. Whereas for Curse of the Were-Rabbit, I'm not really sure why it bothered me so much, maybe just because it wasn't an easy thing to have occur. First-person games also seemed to scare me for most of my childhood, most notably the King Kong game. It probably didn't help that the environments were so dull and grey, but everything about this game was unsettling and intense, and the first-person perspective did not help in the slightest. And yes, I know, this isn't a kid's game in the first place. Technically, it was actually bought for my dad, but I still tried it out. Never gone back to it as an adult due to the bad childhood experience, honestly. So, I talked about Garfield's Scary Scavenger Hunt 2 earlier. As much as I love this game, I have to admit, there was a pretty nasty trick in it. If you went into the hallway where in the first game you got a green key, you'll instead find this painting of various Garfields. Click on it and it'll zoom in on the painting with a text box saying, "There's an important clue hidden in this picture." So you'll be staring at the image, trying to find something off about it, and boom, fucking jump scared. I don't know why they put this in there, but that was my first ever experience with a real jump scare. Kind of a dick move if you ask me. Moving on to something pretty dumb, does anyone else remember Purpals? It wasn't the best game ever, but it was the closest thing I had to having a cat as a kid. Now, you'd probably wonder how a game about taking care of a kitten could ever have anything even potentially scary in it. You ever pissed it off? If your kitten was ever angry for some reason, then it would come over to the screen and start clawing at it, all while hissing and yowling at you, leaving scratch marks on the screen. I think the reason it scared me so much was because of the fact that it seemingly could happen randomly, and looking it up, I can find literally zero information on it. The worst thing ever though was in Sonic R. So this is when everyone sighs, dislikes the video and leaves. All of this is to build up to me being absolutely terrified of the Tails doll? Well look, I'm sorry, but this thing still gives me nightmares to this day. I know the whole trend of making it scary is dead, but to me, that's just how it is. I had so many bad experiences with this as a kid that if you came up to me today and told me that it was actually cursed, then I would wholeheartedly believe you. Now, granted, it is mainly the hidden clips in the old Sonic shorts that scared me the most, along with all the stories on the website called Tales from the Crypt. Yes, looking back at it, the stories can be rather dumb, but some of the images are still nightmare-fuel to this day. Especially the clip in Sonic Shorts Volume 2. I can't see any images from that without flinching. I think that's everything though. I'm sorry this was so long and was basically just me saying the same thing over and over again, but I hope you got at least some kind of enjoyment out of it. If you made it to the end, then thank you so much for watching all the way through. I'd love to hear about what things scared you as a kid or if you related to anything in this video. I'll get the second part done as soon as possible. It might be a while though, but until then, I really hope you enjoyed. Bye!